Hey everyone, welcome back to the Sporting Fan Podcast. Today I thought I would speak about the exit of Babar Azam from the Sydney Sixers and basically the end of his season, or his season in general. Well, we knew that, for those, I think everyone knows at this stage what has happened, but for those that don't, the short version is that the official story is that he got recalled to the Pakistan team for a training camp just after the Sydney Sixers game against the Perth Scorchers, with the Scorchers winning that game. The funny thing with that is that the official line of him getting picked for Pakistan and Pakistan having a training camp, a lot of people aren't actually buying that. Even on commentary, Mark Wall said didn't really buy it. He said that he didn't outright say it was a cover up, but he said he didn't think he was going to be picked for the game, and I think he's been on the money. I think he wasn't going to get picked. He knew he wasn't going to get picked. And the Pakistan, getting picked for Pakistan, I think is a bit of a cover story, just to help him save face. Because, quite frankly, his scores this season have not, and the rate at which he was scoring hasn't really been up to par. And people say, well, he's contributed in other ways, whereby, apparently, I saw a thing the other day that supposedly the crowd attendances for the Sixers home games have been up 9.3% on last year, and the crowds have been pretty good in comparison to previous years. The fact of the matter is, they need to win games, and I think deep down, even people, the most hardened Babar Azam supporters, the Pakistani supporters, know that he was more than likely going to be dropped for the game against Hobart and the game, and if they were to win that game, which they subsequently did, they beat Hobart to play against Perth in the final. I think he was basically told, you're not playing in either game, because I've actually brought up his scores for this podcast to help me basically explain the situation. His scores are 2 of 5, 9 of 10, 58 of 42, 2 of 7, 58 not out of 46 balls, 2 of 7, 14 of 7, 9 not out in a rain-affected game that was washed out of 14 balls against Hobart. The 47 of 39, which I'll come back to that match in a minute, and 1 of 7 in the last regular season game, and then he got stomped for a duck against Perth. Now, off that, he only scored into double figures 4 times out of 11 innings, and there was only 3 scores where he went faster than a runner ball. It was actually, his strike rate was only 103 for the season, which is the lowest in Big Bash history for anyone that has scored more than 200 runs in the season. No one, in 15 years, there's only been, has a lower strike rate. He's only averaged 22.44, this season, and so, quite frankly, and he hasn't been up to par, and people have said, and I have seen comments where, after the Hobart game, Dan Hughes came in and he got 13 off 10. And people are like, well, a lot of Babar Azam supporters are going, well, look, he didn't perform either, so, what's the difference? Well, for starters, he went more than a run a ball, which is more than what Babar Azam has done for majority of the season. And the other thing is he got 13, which, Babar has only got more than that 4 times out of 11 innings all season. So, he hasn't really, he's a better performance in my opinion. Like, yes, was it an outstanding innings? No, not by any chance. He only got 13 of 10. It wasn't like he scored, 30 of 18 balls or something, or 30 of 20. But this is what people don't understand. Like, oh, he's done this and he's done that. Like, he's got runs, and he was like, well, for starters, he doesn't get runs, but at the end of the day, it's a 2020. You need a better strike rate than 103. Like, there was only really, I would say, one game where he had a relatively respectable strike rate, which is the 58 of 42. The other ones, like, yeah, sure, he got a 50, he was 58 not out, he got a 58 not out, but that's on 46 balls, so there's an extra 4 balls he faced, and he got a 47 of 39 against the Thunder, and that's very, very slow for a 2020. So it's been very bad. It hasn't been good performances the whole season from him. And also, coming back to that 47 of 39 from against the Thunder, there's been a lot of discussion about that. I was at that game. So I did see everything that happened. What didn't get shown, on TV, that was at the ground is that he actually slammed his bat down when Smith didn't take the single. So for those that haven't seen it, I think we've all seen it, but for those that haven't, he had, I think, 2 or 3 dot balls going into the last ball of the Cam Green over, which was the 10th over of the inning. The 11th over, I should say, the 11th over of the innings. He had 2 or 3 dot balls. He hit it down to Babar Azam, that is. Hit the ball down to long on, and he wanted to take the single, and then Smith goes, no run, we're not taking the run. Supposedly, there was discussion at the end of the 10th over, because at the end of the 10th over, they have a drinks break, and the team came, and basically the coach comes out, usually the captain comes out, and usually the next batter comes out, usually. As well, and they all discussed with the batsmen that are out there, and supposedly they said we're going to take the power surge straight away at the end of the 10th over for overs 11 and 12. And then Smith said, no, I think it's a better option. The team was saying that, so like guys like Greg Shippard, who was the coach, and Moses Enriquez, who's the captain. And then Stephen Smith goes, no, give us an extra over, so the first over of the power play, I can hit towards the shorter boundary, which is towards the people that know, the SCG, it's towards the members, the ladies, and that side of the field. And which was on that particular day the shorter end, which was the shorter square leg boundary. And he said, I will take the strike, the first ball. And so when it got to the end of the 11th over, which was a Cam Green over, and keep in mind, Babar Azam had only got... There was only 2 runs off that over at that stage, I believe. I think it was only 2 singles. And Babar Azam, like I had said, had about 2 or 3 dot balls going into that last ball. He was 47 of 37 balls at that stage. Hits it down a long on. Smith goes no, keeping in with the team talk. They all agreed apparently that he was going to take strike first ball of the power surge. And he said, so he said no. Babar Azam then slams his bat down, throws his bat down, takes his gloves off, has a massive temper tantrum on the field. And everyone's like, basically, what the hell is this all about? Why is he having a tantrum? He hasn't been scoring any runs. Smith was, 47 of 37 going into that ball, gets a dot ball, he's now 47 of 38. Smith is, I think it was about 55 of 27 or something like that. So he was going at 2 a ball, better than 2 a ball at that stage. Babar Azam was going just over 100. So Smith did the right thing by the team and takes a strike. The next over, he smashes 4 sixes, massive sixes. He hits the 4, and there was also he also gets a 2. There was also a no ball and a wide. So there was 32 runs off the over. And Babar Azam has a sulk. He's whinging at the non-strikers. And then first ball of these of the 13th over, which is the second over of the power surge, chops on, and then he absolutely carries on like a turkey and hits the boundary rope on his way off, and then locks himself in the sheds for the rest of the game. Doesn't come out. It doesn't even come out after the game to shake hands with the Thunder after the Sixers win. He just is carrying on in the change rooms. Now, it all went south from there. So that was the first dismissal. So the first ball after Smith takes says no, gets out. Next game, he gets 1 of 7 deliveries. The next game, he gets a duck of 2 deliveries. So since the non-single, he's got 1 of 10 balls. Now, in that situation, Australians would realise, okay, Smith's the one that's, the team said we want to take the power surge. Smith is hitting it to all parts. I get it. I'm not hitting it as well. He's hitting it out of the park. We want to take the surge. It's better for him to take the strike. But he's felt disrespected, carried on, and apparently it went on for a few days afterwards, according to Moses Enriquez, the captain. And he's gone on and said, they try to explain the situation, and he's carried on saying, oh, I'm disrespected, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, my argument here is that team comes first. And, see, you're not really, and he wasn't really in a position to be carrying on like a turkey either, right? For example, if you're going to carry on and cause disharmony in the team, you got to be freaking scoring runs or taking wickets, one of the two. He's obviously not a bowler, so he wouldn't be taking wickets. Or alternatively, your economy, and I'm just saying theoretically, if he was a bowler, your economy rate is ridiculously low. Even if you're not taking wickets, your economy rate's like 5 point something, or low 6. Like you're going at 5.3 or 5.9 or 6.3 or something and over, where you're basically the opposition can't score off you. And and basically, and that can create wickets at the other end because they just can't get you away. They realise like, oh shit, we need to buddy start hitting at the other end, and then they try too hard and get wickets at the other end. He's obviously not a bowler, so that wasn't a possibility for him. So he had to be scoring runs, which, like I said at the top of this podcast, he wasn't scoring. He's not scoring runs. So, like for example, Don Bradman apparently wasn't he wasn't very popular with his teammates. Apparently, apparently he was very anti-Catholic and that kind of thing when he was playing. And supposedly, and he was very unpopular with his teammates. But his teammates realised the team's not anywhere near as good without Bradman. Like, if he's scoring 100 every 3 innings or something, whatever he did, it's some crazy stat like that. He was getting 100 every 3 or 4 innings, something like that. They realised the guy might be a prick, but we need him in the team. Whereas Babar Azam, he ain't scoring runs, and it's just like, to use the Conor McGregor line, with him not scoring runs, shows the team is all the team is just going, who the fuck is this guy? Who the fuck is that guy? And I'm sure that they were doing like, who does this guy think he is to be going around causing freaking issues when he's not bloody playing well? He's playing. We've got 2 good. We've got 2 guys on the sidelines. We've got Dan Hughes and Jordan Silk on the sidelines that are not playing. And then he's causing disharmony. It's like, it's quite simple. Like, if I was a coach, I'd be just, instead of trying to explain to him the culture, I'd be saying, get the fuck over yourself, dickhead. I'll get on the next plane home. Because we're in line to potentially win a championship here. We can't have blokes carrying on like a dickhead and bloody causing issues in the team, and causing disharmony in the team. Now, if you want to cause that disharmony, well, guess what? You ain't going to be in the team. You're going to be on the next plane home. Well, maybe not on the next plane home, but you ain't going to be in the team. And you're not even going to be welcomed for training. We don't want you at training. We don't want you around the team. Just don't be around us. And, I can guarantee that didn't happen. I can almost guarantee that didn't happen, but I think eventually, like, they were like, look, you need to start being part of the team here. If you don't want to be a part of the team, then that's fine. But please leave us alone. Like, you can't be behaving like this. Apparently they need to explain, like, Moses Enriquez and Greg Shippard and the rest of the team said, like, in our culture, it's team comes first. We don't play personalities. We don't care who you are. If you're not performing, even if you're the greatest player of all time, if you're not performing, you get tapped on the shoulder and say, look, you either jump or you get pushed. And I think that's probably what's ended up happening in the end here, because the reason why people are not believing the official line of, he got put selected for a training camp. Those training camps get organised months. And I'm not saying like 1 or 2 months. I'm saying 6 to 12 months in advance. And everyone knows that. People know that. Because like after the Ashes series, the English said, like, they came out saying, this is what our preparation was saying. We're going to train at this time. The English spoke about how when preparations happens and where they're going to play, who they're going to play, and all this kind of thing. And they were talking about preparation. So, and how that was organised something like 2 or 3 years ago for the Ashes. So people realise that these tours get organised months, like several months in advance, like 6 to 12 months at least, bare minimum in advance. Because they realise that it's not like your local cricket comp, right, where it's... well, actually, that is actually a pretty good example. Just think about your local cricket club. Your games get organised, the draw comes out, and the games go... You get... When the first games are in around September, they come out and they go right through to, depending on what competition you play, right through to February, March, sometimes April, but it's usually all wrapped up by the end of mid to late March. And it's just simply because, you know, the grounds are multi-purpose, and that's when the footy seasons, they need it for the footy season. So usually the seasons get wrapped up usually by March, but those are 6 months so that's 6 months of games that are organised. And the reason why that is because you need the grounds. You need to look at, okay, which grounds are available, when are they available, so they need to book those grounds. And those are organised, those games are booked, those venues are booked 6 months well in advance. So obviously if your local sporting club, your local cricket team or your rugby team or your soccer team or whatever team, basketball team, whatever it may be, your sporting team, those events are organised, those venues are, and that's just the ground. Those are the grounds just by themselves, which are organised 6 months in advance, 6 to 12 months in advance. Now, think about it at a professional level. Is obviously there's a lot more to it, because if you're selecting players, they're playing in domestic competitions. The chances are they're playing in domestic competitions all around the world. You might have 2 or 3 players playing, for example, in the Big Bash. You could have, I believe there's a South African tournament going on at the moment. I think there's more than likely a New Zealand competition going on at the moment. I'm sure there's other tournaments going on around the world. So you could be selecting from, and you could also have just players at home that just need a break. So you could have players in 5 or 6 or 7 different countries, maybe even more, all around the world. So you need to basically go in communication with all those clubs saying, hey, look, we've got this series coming up. Keep in mind, the clubs do keep this in mind, saying, okay, who's likely to be, these international events going on, who's likely to be picked, and when are they going to be picked? So, will they be available for 2 games? Will they be available for 8 games? Will they be available for the entire season? Those 2 games that are available, are they at the start, middle, or end of the season? The clubs do take this into, all the clubs take this into account. But the point I'm trying to make is because the international teams need to organise. They need to organise hotels. They need to liaise with clubs. They need to do all this, and this stuff is done 6 or 12 months in advance, and several months. Actually, longer, because the Big Bash auction was in June last year, June 2025. So, we are now in the end of January. So, that's 7 months ago that they had already had the list. Okay, these are players available. When are they going to be available? a classic example is Sam Curran, and the other international player for the Sydney Sixers. They knew he was going to be available up until the last game, which I think from memory was against Brisbane. They knew that he was not going to be available. He was likely not going to be available because the ECB, the English board, told them that we are going to have a training camp. These are the dates that are going to be for the upcoming T20 World Cup, which starts in a couple of weeks. We are going to have a training camp. These are the players that are likely going to be picked. The Sixers knew that training camp was happening. They knew that Sam Curran was in the English squad, in or around the English squad, so they knew there was a possibility of him getting picked for England, and that with those dates, he wouldn't be, at best he might be available for the first game, but he sure as hell won't be available for the final, and the game that happened on last Friday night. And as it happened, he wasn't available for the first game either against the Scorchers, first finals game, I should say. And so the Sixers knew that in advance. And the Sixers didn't know about this Pakistan supposed training camp. So this is where I think a lot of people have come up with the idea of saying this is just simply to save face for Babar Azam. He was going to be dropped for Dan Hughes, and basically to have him save face, saying instead of coming out and saying, look, he's dropped, he ain't playing, he can save face and saying, oh, there's this training camp in Pakistan that we didn't know about in advance, and he's going home. And so that's where a lot of the Sixers would have known. They, because the fact of the matter is they would have been, if there was a training camp, they would have known, they would have realised he wasn't going to be available. I think it was simply save face and go home now, because he ain't going to play. And so I think everyone has seen through the facade. Everyone knows it's bullshit. I think even before the Hobart game, people were the commentators asked Moses Enriquez, was he going to be picked? And then he said, well, it didn't. He asked if he was available, would he have been picked? And he said, well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Something along the lines of, well, it doesn't really matter because he got picked for Pakistan and he's been recalled. So we didn't need to make that decision. So it's like, that's essentially confirmed that he would have been dropped. More than likely he would have been dropped. So, yeah, that's the reality of the situation, unfortunately. The other thing is, people haven't spoken about the potential impact that both him and Rizwan has had on potential future signings from Pakistan batsmen. Pakistani bowlers have usually done quite well. Obviously, there's always an exception, which I can't think of right now. Or they might have the occasional bad game, which who doesn't? Or like every play, even Bradman got a duck. So everyone has a bad, game. But the bowlers, for the most part, both the spinners and the quicks, have performed quite well in the Pakistani bowlers have performed quite well in the Big Bash. There was a bloke, I can't think of his name at the moment, that played for the Heat. He once the original Pakistani bowler, I think, was Shaheen Afridi, I think that was his name. Once he got injured, and they had another Pakistani bowler come in who has a kind of like a Malinga kind of type action, slinging action. He bowled quite well, and the spinners have all done quite well as well. So the bowlers have done quite well. It's Rizwan and Babar Azam, though, have performed quite poorly. They haven't got any runs. They've scored slowly. And in Babar's case, he's caused all kind of problems for the Sixers. So I think in the future, if any Big Bash team is looking at a Pakistani player, they'll be more looking at a Pakistani bowler or all-rounder, like a bowling all-rounder, so basically a all-rounder who's prefers to bowler. They're a lot better bowler than that. It's kind of like a Mitchell Starc, Mitchell Johnson, Pat Cummins kind of player, where the guy can hold up an end, and they can bat, but their preference is to bowl. And I think they will be more looking at those kind of players from Pakistan in future, whereas I don't think they are going to... They're going to be a lot more cautious with Pakistani batsmen, I think. It's just like, well, they both haven't adapted to the conditions. They've both been poor. They've both been batting extremely slowly. They both haven't scored they just haven't been performing up to the standard that they need. So I just don't think they're going to be struggling to justify why these blokes to buy them again. I know Babar Azam, like I said at the top, brought in several thousand people through the gate. He going to the game. I'm a season member, ticket holder for the Sixers. When I went to the games, it was noticeable that there was a lot more Pakistani people of Pakistani descent at the game. There were, you could see that he did bring those people through the gate. Those people probably wouldn't have gone to the games, or they probably not as many. There probably would have been a few that went if he didn't play, but I'm sure a lot of them went just to say, I can see Babar Azam. A classic example of that is the first Big Bash, Shane Warne was playing for the Stars. When they played the Sixers at the SCG, I can guarantee a lot of people went through the gate that day just simply to say, I want to, this is probably my last chance that I get to see Shane Warne, because Shane Warne's playing down in Melbourne. I don't have an opportunity to go down to Melbourne during the season. This is probably my last chance to see Shane Warne. So they're probably thinking if they live in Australia, this is probably my one chance that I actually get to see Babar Azam. So I understand that from a ticketing and a financial aspect that has happened, but at the end of the day, the team is there to win titles. That is what everyone remembers. No one's going to remember, do you remember when old mate play, insert any play here, played for, played in this game at whatever, and people are just going, what? No, I don't remember. People don't remember regular season for the most part, I wouldn't say always, but for the most part, people don't remember regular club games, right? They might remember individual moments in finals, but for the most part, people don't remember, like, you know, yeah, sure, and I know that sounds ironic with me saying, I got to see Shane 1 at the SCG and BBLO 1. But for the most part, like, people want to win titles. Like, you think about the players, they will say, you hear them, what they always, well, from an Australian perspective, I don't know what it is like in other countries, especially in the subcontinent, but for Australians, they look more at what did you win. Like, for example, Ricky Ponting. People go, he won 1,000,000,001, Cricket World Cups, he has all these trophies, right? He won everything, right? And people, he's going to say, it was so great that, I got to play in all these teams, but they more look at, and it's probably a little bit different when you're actually playing, because obviously they're, for the most part, usually they're your mates, but people remember the titles you won. They go, like, for example, they go, this guy won X amount of titles. Like, a classic example is Dan Christian, right? He won titles basically everywhere he went. Every time he moved, he seemed to be bloody winning a freaking championship, whether it be in Australia in the Big Bash or teams overseas. They always seem to win. He's got some ridiculous record on the Big Bash. In international 2020 competitions. Domestic competitions all over the world, I should say. He's won tournaments all around the world, and people go, he won, this many Big Bash titles. I don't know how many he won, but I know he won a few. He won this many Big Bash titles, and he won this many tournaments and this premierships and that one, and won that tournament, and won that tournament, and won the other tournament. And people remember that. They don't go, he played with this person. They go, he won that title. And then people are going to say the same thing about Babar Azam, but in the opposite way. They're going to go, he played like freaking dog shit. And then the Pakistani supporters going, they're in the final because of him. They're in the final in spite of him. There's a major difference. He did not be very rarely contributed to a winning team. They were basically, for a majority of the season, playing with 10 players. People, his main role, like, people saying, like, he was basically an ambassador role, and he was there to bring in crowds. No, he was there to win games. That is his job. So that's just my take. I don't think he's going to be welcome back. I don't think he's going to be... I'm not sure. Obviously, I don't know what his contract is. I don't know if it was for 1 year or multiple years. If it was for 1 year, I don't think the Sixers are going to renew. I think they're going to move on to somebody else. If it's a multiple year deal, I think they're going to look for ways to get out of the contract. I'm sure there's clauses in there that there are ways that he can get out of, the Sixers can get out of it, and I wouldn't be surprised if they do that. I know getting an extra 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people through the gate, at $20, $30 a head, That's obviously $40,000 game that he's bringing in. But even that, you think about it, that's only basically covering his that's barely covering his salary. He's got 420. He's on apparently 420,000 before match payments. So he's barely covering costs. And people say, "Oh, well, what about the jersey numbers?" It's a pretty well known fact that clubs get very little from kit. It's usually the manufacturer that gets majority of the funds from it. The clubs get, it's usually they have to sell an X amount of jerseys, and then after that the club gets a percentage, and it's usually a relatively low percentage, and that's in all sports, whether it be in this case rugby, cricket. In this case it's cricket, but it's the same in rugby. It's the same in soccer. Basically any team sport, they get a big upfront payment for the team, and then the sponsor gets, whether it be Nike, Adidas, whoever it is, Puma, they then get they get a majority of the sales, and then after they hit a point, the clubs get a percentage. So even in the jersey sales, he probably, they would get a minuscule amount of that. They'll probably get I'd say only a couple of grand. And because of him, that would probably be even less than that, I would say. And they might get a little bit more, squeeze a lemon for a little bit more in sponsorship, because more people are watching. There's more, bigger TV attendances, more people at ground. That's where he probably may come in. But personally, I think in the future, if they want him to be around, I think it'll be more in an ambassador role rather than a playing role, because he just simply hasn't performed, and I don't think they really, the way that he's had the carry on, I don't think they would really want him around the team anyway. So I don't think he's gonna be asked back. It will be interesting to hear what you guys will think. If you guys think that he's I'll be interested to hear how you guys think he will perform this season, if you guys agree with me or not. It'll be interesting to hear if you think he'll be come back to the Big Bash, whether it be with the Sixers or another team. I personally don't think he's going to come back, but for any team, let alone the Sixers. But it'll be interesting to hear your thoughts, and it'll be interesting to see how the final night goes between the Sixers and the Scorchers. I hope you all have a good one. Let me know your thoughts, and until next time, thank you very much.